That's right. Greetings, fellow Gothamites. Tiki here.
And Bluedragonfive.
And tonight, I'm sorry. I was going to pass it to you. You said pass it to
Go on.
you.
Just do it. Tee it up.
Okay, I'm sorry. Oh, God. Tonight, we're talking about the first installment of Chris.R. Notarille's Joker fan film series, Call Me Mr. J. Dragon, why don't you give us some additional context?
Yeah, that's right, folks. We're talking, Call Me Mr. J. This is the first in a series of 5, technically 6, but the 6th one's more of like a Christmas card thing, so I don't know if we're going to necessarily do that one or not, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Essentially, we have a series of 5 fan films themed to the Heath Ledger Joker. Essentially, what we would have gotten, had Heath Ledger stuck around, at least in theory. And you're probably
that sounds like a familiar concept, Dragon.
I know, right? Okay, no, seriously. So, folks, what we're doing here is, we had, at length, we covered all the episodes of the Joker blogs, which is definitively one of the best, Batman fan films ever made. More specifically, Joker fan films, fan series, more accurately, ever made. Series being the key word. Because again, it was so good. I mean, you could factors like this is what happens after this is what happens between Nolan films. Admittedly, Series 2 complicates that because it is remarkably unfinished.
Remarkably is the right word.
And that's essentially why we're here today, because the Joker blog started so ridiculously strong with the first season, and it got us really hyped up with further evidence, and then a really great, at least seemingly great season 2. But lacked an ending, and unfortunately, there was no communication with the fans to embarrassing levels, and just they dug themselves into a Bane-like pit that they're still trying to climb their way out of, and they haven't figured out to untie the rope to do that yet. So they're just kind of hanging there right now. Point being, on the flip side of that, we have our filmmaker friend, Chris.R. Notarile, who on the flip side of the coin, very communicative with his fan base. This guy, he lives and breathes fan films, been doing it forever. Very professional, strong coffee, mind you, but he's very professional in terms of like the man's output, and he cares about his craft. It's something to admire. And for me, one of the first fan films that ever brought me to Blinky500 was Call Me Mr. J, because around this time, I was basically looking for Batman fan films, and I had that directed me to stuff like the Joker blogs and Call Me Mr. J, which at the time were very popular. My YouTube experience goes back to roughly 08 or 09, I believe 08. But
there are a lot of Dark Knight Joker parodies around 08, 09, Dragon.
Exactly. So that's my point. So in that kind of vein, that's kind of what kind of led me to Blinky500, and then just kind of being wowed by the fan films. Years later, here we are. We've talked to the man himself, and we've talked about his fan films. And my plan with Joker Blog's case study coverage was that I knew there wasn't going to be. Chances are,
yeah, you lonked onto me on that one, man. You very intentionally did not let me know about the abrupt ending or lack of ending.
Now, that's the thing. I mean, my hope of hopes. I took such a long way getting there by covering all of the Batman the Animated Series in the optimistic hope that certainly, in all that time that we would take between that and eventually covering the Joker blogs, they would finish out their last 3 episodes.
Oh, you poor naive soul.
So obviously that did not happen, but my contingency was we can't just end things on a dour, sad note. So that's why we're here today, Tiki. We're here talking about the fan film that actually does deliver, and I mean, for all intents and purposes, does have an ending, or at least something synonymous with. I mean, there's an ending, and then there's like kind of like an ending plus, because there's an ending, and then let's just say we're going to have something that's like, what would the next stage be after the ending of what kind of our fan series here? So this is basically kind of like the happy ending to our side. At the very least, we're going to see a different approach to kind of a Heath Ledger Joker inspired parody that is very much shoulder to shoulder with the greats, and something you kind of wish would have been like, this is what Nolan could have done potentially, going forward, had the Joker stuck around, and had we kind of maybe gone a little bit more traditional with certain things. It's a very different approach than the Joker blogs, as you can probably tell, because Joker blogs was again doing the long con for it was doing a series, and this is just individual fan films. And as I'll get into with the background, there was not a planned series of films. This was a standalone that was so popular it got revisited. So
That's cool.
so that's what I'm saying. What we're getting here are complete wholes. Each installment is a complete whole in terms of what the story was intended to be, which is complete counterintuitive to the Joker blogs, which just kind of as it went along, it was kind of thinking, well, we could expand this and we could kind of tell a fuller story.
Yeah, they got a little bit too ambitious. I feel like right around the time they brought in Lex Luthor, it was like, okay, guys, like, don't get me wrong, the actor you have to play Lex is really entertaining, but I don't know, maybe this is cross-pollinating the DC hive a little too much.
And I want to be clear, I don't want to just turn this into a compare and contrast with.
Oh, of course not. I don't mean to do that. Yeah.
But again, for the broad scope of what we're doing here, there are some parables to draw from like how the different kind of forms of storytelling kind of apply here. Where again, Joker Blogs is like, okay, what if we kind of turn this into like a long running narrative with essentially the plan? We just don't know what the heck the end of the plan was. And on the flip side here, what if we had like something we have like a professional fan filmmaker who is top of his credit. This is his early years, by the way, which is really going to be really impressive to break down. This is like Blinky500 towards the beginning of things, and really making a name for himself, carving out a huge niche with the Mr. J series, and just kind of seeing how that storytelling differs and how kind of the approach in the story would go with somebody with a very different vision, but essentially they're starting from the same story, but they're going about it very different ways.
Sure.
So, Tiki, you've seen this. You've never seen this before, right?
Nope.
Yeah. So your first time. How did you feel about Call Me Mr. J?
It's interesting. I feel like it's a hard act to follow with the Joker blogs because Richard's Victims in the comments, he says, I'm going to be honest, I'm not really a fan of the portrayal of Heath Ledger Joker of this one. And I can't put my finger on why. I don't know. There's maybe like an it's almost like an angsty teen Joker. He says the Joker in The Dark Knight and Joker blogs were interesting when they did the whole nihilist thing, but when this portrayed it was like, this guy's just a teen. Yeah, so Dragon, basically, long story short here, I feel like, how I wasn't like, honestly, with the Joker blogs, I never fully got on board with the actress playing Harley. Like, I thought she was fine, but I never really, believed her as the character. Here, it's a different story. Like, I'm really loving the actress that we have for Harley. I really think she's doing a lot with the screen time she's given. There's a lot of layers to her performance here. Honestly, it's kind of funny. I feel like in this one episode, we got almost like the whole arc that they were like slowly trying to tease out in the Joker blogs in just 15 minutes. But on the flip side of that, Dragon, I absolutely do agree with Richard's Victims. Like, I don't want to spend too much time just poo-pooing the performance of the Joker, but I definitely think compared to the Joker blogs, at the very least, it's kind of a significant step down. And writing-wise, too, honestly, there's a couple lines here that are pretty cringe for me that I very much see what Richard's Victims is saying with, with kind of like the nihilistic. Like, I feel like he took the nihilistic thing maybe a little bit too far, and it did kind of veer into, like, cringe, emo, goth kid territory a little bit. Don't get me wrong. I'm definitely willing to give this actor... I'm not fully writing him off at all, and I'm definitely excited to see where they go from here. I'm assuming, obviously, like, the next one, he'll be more fully... Because this one, it's kind of like an evolution, getting, like, it's through three therapy sessions. We don't really get the fully realized Joker until the end of the third one. So, I'm definitely willing... I'm willing to bet that this guy's going to improve as we go on, but... To start out with, Dragon, that was kind of like my impression was, okay, my opinions on these two leads are sort of flipped. I think Harley's great. Joker, not terrible per se. I've certainly seen worse Jokers on YouTube. Hello, Doug Walker, Melvin, brother of the Joker. But yeah, definitely not as much of a standout as Joker blogs, unfortunately. But like I said, we still got 4 more to go. So, I definitely think this actor's got some room to improve and to kind of catch up to that level.
I'd like to give you a little background on this, Tiki.
Okay.
So this came out March 14th, 2009. So I'm sorry. This came out in 09. The idea behind this one was he had Chris.R. Notarile and his ex-girlfriend Kim Santiago, who was the co-director on this. Basically, they both co-directed it. Only she, sorry, I'm jumping ahead a few things here. Point being, so it all started with the Notarile and Kim Santiago. They speculated about what Nolan's take on Harley Quinn might be, and Chris Notarile, he wanted to put his acting chops to the test.
Mm-hmm.
So he basically it was kind of like see a need, fill a need to some degree. I want to know what happens to Harley Quinn, and I want to get back in the ring. Essentially, I want to try out. I want to take a stab at acting.
And honestly, Dragon, now I feel stupid because I didn't realize it was him.
Yeah, I was thinking that while you were saying that. Like,
I'm terribly sorry, Chris. I'm terribly sorry. This was 14 years ago, to my credit. This was literally like 14 years ago, Chris. I'm sorry.
Okay, so anyway, in the making of this, so they use. By the way, I actually was able to ask Chris Notarile directly for some background here, so I'm very grateful that he provided it. So basically, Notarile did his first feature, which is like an original concept, Methodic, I believe. He did Methodic, which was his first feature, and that film incorporated a lot, from what I understand, a lot of like therapy and stuff in it. So that's where he got a lot of the research for the writing for this. There's a lot of therapy and patient procedures and all that sort of stuff, which is very much in the the DNA of the piece here. And yeah, so that's the thing, Tig. It's interesting your views on Notarile's performance here, because this was Notarile's first starring role, his first real acting gig.
So with that in mind, like I said, obviously, I absolutely think there's some room for upside here. I mean, and of course, oh God, I'm blanking on the last name, but Tom. He uses Tom last name. I know it starts with a P. Help me out here.
Here's the thing. I know. Tom, I butcher.
I want to say it's Profsley or something.
Yeah, it's Provoski. It's not Provoski, but it's
okay. Well, we're bad. We're bad, Blinky.
I'm so glad you brought him up, and he's not even in this one, Tiki. So thanks for.
Well, I'm just saying that guy's usually like the go-to guy for Notarile. He's like the so I'm more used to seeing him in the leading role, and I knew this wasn't him, but I kind of figured like, okay, that was before he got linked up with Tom. So again, this was 14 years ago. So
this is way before Tom Provoski. Again,
for sure.
I'm going to go with Provoski. I apologize, Tom, if I know I'm butchering that. I know I'm butchering that. Tom,
I am so sorry for even bringing it up.
Yeah, just thanks, because that's the thing. I keep seeing all the other things every time I rewatch, like the new Kingpin fan film and everything. I'm seeing the name, but I'm always. Anyway, I kind of it's like I have to see it so I can get it, like Provoski or Provost. Anyway,
all right.
Anyway, point being, as Notarile's first starring gig, and he because of that he relinquished his co-director credit, so he kind of gave Kim Santiago like the full kind of credit there. Thank you, Tom Provoski.
All right, do we know who Dadpool on YouTube is?
I mean.
Is that someone associated with Blinky?
I believe I think Dadpool on YouTube is from a lot of the Notarile live streams, I believe.
Okay.
If so, welcome.
Yeah, welcome. All right.
Anyway, so yeah. Anyways, Notarile's first starring gig. He's relinquished the co-director credit. You'll notice a few things in the kind of visual concept here. So again, we've stripped away the makeup on the Joker, and we've given you notice Notarile, he's wearing this wig, at least at the start. Eventually he's going to grow his hair out a little bit long for the role, but right now he's wearing this Party City wig, and he hated every second of this thing.
Oh God.
It's the thing, like, I think I might have this wig too from like the time I've done Joker for Halloween. Essentially it's this wig where you're afraid anytime you turn your head it's going to fall off. So you'll probably notice that's why the hands are doing a lot more movement than the head and everything. Because again, there's always that fear of like, oh God, if I move my head around. too much, it's gonna ruin the take. All right, so on the flip side, Scott McClure probably had a similar thing too. Only it was kind of in reverse actually. He started with long hair, but he hated maintaining it, so he kind of found a wig that
okay, that makes sense.
Got better over time. So it's kind of a flipperoo on in terms of our Joker actors. So it was a 4-hour shoot in the empty apartment of one of their friends.
That's actually kind of impressive.
I know, right? And that's the thing. I mean, I wanted to try and nail down the production time before I was going to ask.
Like, I know that I made really shitty 5-minute student short films that took way longer than 4 hours to shoot.
Oh, don't put down Cloverdale.
Oh, well, Cloverdale doesn't count, my friend. That is a feature film, motherfucker.
I don't know if I call it a feature film, but it's a feature something.
It's literally almost the exact same runtime as Dumbo. It counts as a feature-length film.
Okay.
All right.
Anyway, but yeah, so they shot in 4 hours, which is very impressive. And I imagine, really many a time, especially in the early years, it was probably very much kind of almost like a Clerks production in terms of a lot of rehearsals and everything in preparation for it so it goes smoothly. Also, I mean, it probably helps that the setups are pretty simple on this initial fan film because it's kind of back and forth. It's very much kind of a 2-shot sort of thing, over his shoulder.
Well, it's almost eerie how much it mirrors the first season of the Joker blogs, stylistically.
Well, I kind of had a little bit.
Except it's not really going for the found footage. It is technically tapes, but the look isn't really going for that grainy sort of style. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's going for audio tapes more than anything.
Right.
Yeah. So here's the thing. So as I alluded to earlier, like most Blinky500 films, and especially the early stuff, this was kind of done on a whim. It was sort of like a see a need, fill a need sort of thing. It was a one and done, but again, because of the fan demand, everyone.
I mean, my favorite Notarile projects are always with all due respect to these, which I'm sure are great. My favorite ones are always the ones where it's giving a fan film to a character that you would never expect to see a budget behind.
Course,
so I don't know. For me, Powdered Toast Man is always the MVP of the Notarile verse.
Yep, Powdered Toast Man. I was so elated with Zoid, obviously. So out there. Anyway, that's things because of all the fan demand, especially the time this came out. It's released at the perfect time because everyone has Joker on their mind or the Batman fan films on their mind. So that led to a lot of which leads to revisiting the concept and sequels getting made of certain fan films. That's why there's kind of incidental trilogies of Blinky500 fan films many a time. And of course nowadays, just to make sure no one's getting any ideas of just starting a chant of more this, more this. Nowadays, it's purely you fund it, I'll film it, which again is a credo. I keep telling Notarile to put on a T-shirt and wear that T-shirt. I keep telling him. I forget if he actually ended up making that shirt or not. I mean, a part of me thinks he might have, but I mean, still, I keep telling him bumper stickers, put it everywhere. That's his new catchphrase.
I feel that, yeah.
So, lastly, here, just two things. One, Joanna Tellander, she plays Harleen Quinzel, does a great job. And we're going to get into that. We'll break that down in a moment. But so with the Joker blogs of it all, just to kind of set just to address how Notarile feels about the Joker blogs.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I knew he kind of felt this way before, and I wanted to confirm it because usually in a lot of the.
Are we going to get some classic Notarile strong coffee right now?
Not aggressively so, but
Okay.
It's a pungent bean.
Okay.
It's no Lindsay bean, but it's pungent bean.
God. All right.
We all love Lindsay bean. Anyway, so
a running joke on his Facebook page about how she's turning more and more into Jessica Rabbit with each passing year.
Well, it could be a lot worse.
right.
Anyway, so so you gotta remember, so when Joker Blogs was out, it was kind of in competition with this, but not intentionally. It wasn't as we all know, as I guess us who know the man, I guess the fans of Blink500 would know. Chris Notarile really does not really partake in other people's fan films, at least not it's not getting into the creative process. Okay, I want to avoid this. I want to avoid this. He's focusing on his own stuff, which sometimes will lead to kind of the conflict of like, okay, I've done something and many other people have done their version of this fan film. So there's going to be comparisons because of that, which are kind of unavoidable in the line of work that he does here. So at this point in time, when this thing came out, the Joker Blogs was in season 1. They had 5 episodes, 5+ episodes, but essentially 5 main episodes. Basically, it was up to Hypnotize, the Hugo Strange hypnosis episode.
So that's interesting because it's still like kind of like, on the same track of like this episode as far as like plot progression.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So you have the Joker Blogs. The early height of the Joker Blogs was Hypnotize, and then episode 8 was like the huge zenith that really got him into doing a lot more episodes and everything. That really got him to the second half with Dr. Arkham coming back and everything. So 8's like the big benchmark, but still 5 is like when the fire's starting to grow. So that you can imagine a lot of people who are like waiting for some Joker Blogs, not waiting like they are now, but at least waiting for, oh boy, I can't wait for the next one. A lot of that attention's going to this fan film, and then you're going to have comparisons because of that, which does annoy Mr. Notarile. It does.
I feel that.
As you can imagine at the time, it's like,
I just want to say in my defense, Chris, if you are listening to this, like Dragon is the man that made me watch all of the Joker blogs before doing this. So like, if it is like it is fresh in my head, I apologize. I will try to refrain from the comparisons.
But again, I prepared him to essentially it was homework for this fan series in some degree. To some degree.
All right.
Anyway, okay. So here's what he thinks about the show, though.
Okay.
So he always found apparently, according to Notarile, he always found the found footage gimmick with the Joker blogs as an idea that might be interesting at first, but it's going to be hard to maintain for a character like the Joker, because it's kind of hard to believe that the Joker would care about having a camera on him at all times and basically be able to keep up the conceit of like, okay, what other ways can you contrive to have like a camera on the Joker? Like,
sure,
the fear.
Which I mean, the series itself did kind of veer away from found footage as it went on.
Exactly, so. They got a season out of it, which is impressive in itself. They got a full season out of that. But that's what I'm saying. Notarile was like, how do you maintain that consistency?
Honestly, I think the way that they interacted with the audience was the way that they kind of maintained it.
I would concur with that thought. That's nice. I mean, I respectfully disagree with Notarile here, but I see his point, though. I see the point that, it is a bit of a buy, but, again, I think Joker Blog circumvented certain things. I think what Notarile is mainly getting at is that had we just had the whole therapy thing happen, so basically, if we dedicate a whole season entirely to Harleen and Joker just having those therapy sessions inside the asylum with the found footage thing, it could potentially get old. Yes, like after 8 episodes, we didn't shake it up. Then So that in that sense, I see what he's saying. I don't know how much I doubt that I really don't think he kept up with it, because I've told Notarile some other stuff about Joker blogs in the past, and let's just say, I told him the stuff that you found out, at the end of our journey. And, he's laughing very incredulously at it. Just scoffing and laughing incredulously at what the Joker blogs did in terms of their funding compared to the no budget exploits of Chris.R.Notarile, and seeing how far he's gone. No budget compared to where they've gone on several thousand. All right. Okay, all that said, finally, we're going to break it down.
Yes. Okay, so since this is mostly like a series of conversations, I don't necessarily want to just recite everything word for word, but
of course, but just to break down kind of like what's going on.
Yeah.
Very bare bones. Now here's something too. So apparently the very bare bones presentation of this, and this is something you'll see a lot in early Blinky500 works like this. It's kind of a technical limitation, but also somewhat intentionally. So it's just basically 2 people having a therapy session for the duration here, so we don't need to go really spectacular with our visuals. And again, it's
I do like how I feel like the ambition in this comes not from the visuals, but from the structure, where it's 3 therapy sessions, and each therapy session in between there's another one that we haven't seen. So It's kind of gradually getting deeper into their relationship, and sort of just basically the gimmick here is, I think, pretty compelling, which is just essentially seeing him systematically wear her down. And we haven't really seen that before in live action to this extent before.
Yeah, and I guess that's what I'm getting at. Because again, there's something. It's about the performances shining, and because of that, and it's kind of like it's kind of grittying it's making the world kind of gritty and realistic, and it's kind of taking the cinematic, vista
I mean,
shots
to
of
be fair,
something.
gritty and realistic was kind of the Nolan verse calling card, right?
Well, yeah, I guess that's what I'm saying. It's kind of like it's interesting to see like the stuff that we've kind of celebrated with the Nolan stuff, but just kind of like condensed down to its barest bones to some degree in terms of, okay, it's just this whole thing is essentially is a tribute to the interrogation scene in terms of how we're structuring and how we're directing it, which I thought was a really good move because I think the whole conceit of the thing is like, okay, what if Batman is a static character who really doesn't change, or ultimately doesn't, ultimately, traditionally he does not change. That's the whole thing with the Joker. The unstoppable force meets the immovable object, et cetera, et cetera.
Uh-huh.
So because of that, what if you had an interrogation scene only the other side of it does in fact change, and that is horror. So that's so I like that we're kind of taking the general premise of something we've seen Nolan do, but we're changing a very key component of it. We're not having someone bump up against the Joker. We're having someone like who's being who's being molded by him in these similarly directed kind of like moments with in terms of the shots and everything. Anyway, so okay, so Joker post the Dark Knight, he's in Arkham. Interestingly, here's something we did not get in the other show. He is he was stripped of his makeup and everything, which is something they kind of this one. This is the only time I really have to bring up the Joker blogs, so I'm going to do it one more time. In the Joker blogs, the main comparison this short film always had to the Joker blogs in the comments and everything was that in the Joker blogs they addressed the whole makeup thing. Where in the episode with the Scarecrow, where like he was hosed down when he got there, and then eventually given his makeup back to kind of help the inmates get their personas and kind of help ease them into therapy. And we kind of took a similar notion here, but again, no really kind of looked at it in terms of like actual procedures. Okay, in no sane world will we allow these people to keep their personas and their makeups and everything. So how would he logically?
Well, that's exactly what I like about the performance that we're getting out of this Harley Quinn is the fact that like she is trying to maintain that professional demeanor.
Yes.
And for me, the most compelling parts of her performance isn't even necessarily in the dialogue. It's more so like the little glances and looks and kind of like moments of realization where she like kind of like gets what is happening, but is both powerless and on some level does not want to stop it. And that kind of like internal like push pull going on within her. That to me is the compelling performance stuff in this episode.
I want to highlight too. I love the physical acting on Notarile here, where you have like the feet and the hands and everything. You have like the exposed feet, and he's like, he's like this again. The fact he has like the hands are cuffed, but they're doing a lot of gesturing, which feels very in line with something Ledger would do in a scene like this. He's so again we have the very put together Harleen Quinzel, and she's conducting the first interview, and we have like the whole the origin of the Mr. J name I did really like in the writing, the whole John Doe, aka Joker.
Yeah, I like how it's kind of like an in-between. It's like, okay, like I get that you're not just going to actively call me my supervillain persona, but just call me Jay for sure. Like that actually makes a lot of internal sense.
Yeah, since it's called Mr. Doe, it's Mr. J. Very logical way of getting to kind of like the iconic.
There's only one Mr. Doe, and it's Kevin Spacey from Seven.
Detective! If Ra's al Ghul were not a mellow guy, he would just yell like "Detective!"
Totally.
Okay. Anyway, so he hates being called that name. They settle on Mr. J. Let's see. So in Harleen's new to the hospital. The idea that's kind of in the description of the video here, it's kind of read between the lines sort of thing. She's replacing Dr. Jonathan Crane, who becomes Scarecrow. And here's something cool. We established the panic button under the table. Now, of course, with the the production limitations of early Blinky500, we don't have a fancy table with like a little actual panic button on there. It's a desk. It's like a loose leaf desk. But,
Okay, now this is going back to the days of like the Ash from Pokemon sketch and just giggling and like nitpicking, like, hey, wait a minute, that's not a restaurant. That's just Joshua Thomas's living room.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, seriously, that the whole how did they think that was going to be a restaurant? Come on.
Okay, but that episode gave us so many quotes, though.
I don't have a dad.
I don't have a dad. I feel like we haven't used that as much as we should anymore. All right. Anyways.
Okay. Yeah, the ass catching was immaculate conception.
Oh God, I always heard
the
the theory that it was the Mr. Mime that his mom hung out with.
Oh, come on, man!
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's not.
I don't actually believe that, but that theory is out there.
No, I hope so. Okay, so we have this runner where they're kind of talking about dreams and everything here. The whole how did I just leave? I had a dream. I dream I found the cure to AIDS. What was the cure? More AIDS. So here's what I like about this.
This AIDS thing is, I don't know about you, but for me, it's exactly what Richard's Victims is talking about, where this just seems like some goth emo kid manifesto bullshit.
Well, here's
all of due respect to Notarile. Again, this was 14 years ago, Chris. I don't fault you for your writing being a little bit cringe back in the day, all right?
I mean, I liked it for this reason. I like that I can't recall full on, but I remember in Heath Ledger, I don't know if the inspiration, I meant to ask about this, but I didn't. I don't know if this came directly from the...
I wish you would have, because honestly, it kind of comes out of nowhere.
Well, I mean, the good news is actually, I know it won't help us right now, but I can ask you if you have any questions about these fan films. I can actually.
Well, yeah, honestly, the AIDS thing was the biggest, out of left field. Wait, where did that come from?
Well, here's where I assume it came from. My assumption is that it came from the Heath Ledger Joker Journal, which I'm always endlessly fascinated by.
Oh, okay.
That is my theory. Now, this is the thing I wanted to clarify, but essentially, because I remember the reason I didn't ask is I remember way back, during when the video was put out and there were comments and stuff on the YouTube thing, which basically comments you could find, no early response. Now there's buried but among comments. It's probably hard to find now.
Right.
But back then, I mean, the AIDS thing was discussed, and I could have sworn it was. I think it's coincidental. I don't think it was actually from the Joker Journal, but I like that.
I could see the Heath Ledger Joker being one of those people that intentionally goes around and puts needles infected with AIDS blood in random people's chairs and shit.
You could buy that, sure. But that's the thing. It just feels in that book, Joker wrote down sadistic things that he found very funny. I think AIDS was in the listing, I think.
Okay, I'm sorry, but just the idea of the Joker just finding the concept of AIDS amusing is in itself kind of amusing.
I know I really wish they would have published the Joker Journal. I mean, I don't know.
Maybe one day, Dragon. Maybe one day. I feel like
it's getting into that weird
grail of nerd media that's just waiting to be unearthed when it's more time appropriate.
I know it's getting into that. It gets into that gray area of what's appropriate, because I mean it was his personal diary, but still, and I think we put the rest, the whole the dumb theory that's been debunked many times that he was actually playing the role got into his head, which is not the case. So I think because
of that, hell of a drug, kids.
What?
I said heroin is a hell of a drug, kids.
Right. Anyway. You see my point, though. Anyway, the point that journal might have a lot of really interesting insights into how that role was crafted and everything. So the point being, I wonder if Notarile was.
Richard Victims, I kind of agree with you. It does seem a little bit tame, where it's ooh, I'm gonna cure AIDS with more AIDS. Ooh, that's such an edgy observation. Well, you know what I mean?
Here's what I like about the writing of this moment.
Okay,
so I like it that he's formed it in basically it's in the form of a joke, the way he's talking about AIDS. He's talking about the whole, a negative plus a negative can only be a positive. So, it's already kind of the whole, testing positive and stuff, but specifically it goes into the whole Lions thing. This is all a way of getting to who gave the lion the AIDS. Basically it's ultimately a bestiality joke. It's kind of, I don't know.
I don't see the Joker being a bestiality humor type of person. I'm sorry. I feel like I'm super nitpicky.
I don't know. I just like the fact that he's talking about this really dark thing, and he's just he's putting I
mean, I see the logic there when you put it like that.
Well, he's basically testing the waters and how far he can push her by telling her this really crass joke, you know?
Sure.
It's really kind of like, again, seeming like I've done something really positive and that I've found the cure for AIDS, but the cure is something horrifying. And I don't know. So because of that, I kind of look past the whole.
I mean, I do like how Harley's at first like, oh, well, that's positive. All right.
Yeah. And again, the whole her saying positive and then he says positive in the punchline sense. I don't know. I like the structure of that. At least I do. Anyway.
I hear you.
Okay. So let's see. Anyway. Okay, so after this, we have kind of a neat foreshadow to things. So why do you feel the need to push my buttons? Let's chalk it up to a self-defense mechanism. So I think ultimately, my theory and what's going on here is that his plan ultimately is to get what happens at the end of this fan film to occur. It's like, I want her to push that button, and I'm gonna to prove that I have a hold on her. She's gonna push that button, and she's gonna say everything's fine, and she's gonna be my key to escape, aka my new flunky henchman. So again, there's kind of the relationship manipulation thing, where all of this ultimately is to have a way of escape.
All right.
So that was kind of my theory, and like ultimately why all that's kind of going on there. And I think that's yeah. All right, let's see. So then we get into the whole makeup issue, the whole thing of like, I feel out of my element. It's like the makeup face paint, like I call it war paint. Women wear makeup. I call this war paint. Let's see. So and then ultimately, and this is interesting. He's calling around. I'm playing stupid. Like, don't play stupid because you're not. He sees.
There's a couple. I love how in each of the 3 therapy sessions, there's a moment that like really gets under his skin. And this is I feel like that's this moment in the first session is just the whole like her basically talking down to him like she is just a regular therapist talking to a patient. You know what I mean?
I know it's obvious to say this, but the 3-act structure is very strong here.
You know what I think the stroke of genius is with the 3-act structure? I already brought it up, was the fact that we are missing a segment in between we're missing a session in between the sessions that we actually see. So it leaves a lot up to the imagination, especially between the 3rd one and the 5th one.
Exactly. The 4th one's very key, but we're not seeing it. We don't need to see
it. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, the fact is, like, happened like this over the course of 5 weeks. So in 5 weeks, she essentially falls for him,
Oh.
Which again is realistic. If that's gonna happen, at the very least, if he's gonna have like a strategic plan of getting to her, it'd be 5 weeks.
Sure.
All right, let's see. So so basically, Joker is going on about like so ultimately what we get at in this family is that he's very fascinated by the fact that she's scared of something within herself. In fact, she's sitting across from a monster and she's not scared of him. She's only scared of what he's going to do.
I feel like the way I read her performance is very much like she recognizes in herself that she is essentially one of the Bundy fangirls in this moment, just interacting with this person. And she hates that about herself. And yet she is drawn in. Like this is why this performance is so good, because there's so much that you can kind of draw out of her with. Like, you get the sense that she has self-confidence issues, so that, when he does play to her ego and boost up her confidence, that really is like the secret ingredient here.
Absolutely. So I really do like this too here, where basically he lays out the ground rules here. Like, okay, look, everyone wants to know about. Well, I'm sorry. I guess that kind of we're building that. Everyone wants to know about the missing link, the Rosetta Stone for everyone, for mass murdering psychopaths and everything. Anyway, so like he kind of knows her like a book in this moment. Like, let me guess, he's looking at her, he kind of determines everything she's afraid he's going to like determine from her. Like 15 years of serial killers, rapists, pedophiles, and like arsonists, and then you have the Whomper, which is me, the big Whomper, and he just senses that there's something behind the specs and everything, and that this profession, it's chosen for, but not by herself, because she's basically that she's. It seems like to me he's saying that you're trying to understand the screw loose in yourself here, which I guess ultimately can be looked at as either Bundy fangirl, or perhaps you might be the Joker yourself. You might you're understanding him more than you should, and that scares her, perhaps.
Right. I can see that too. Yeah.
And she kind of ends the first session. That's all the time we have today. So then we get to the session 3.
And it's like I think one of the strongest elements of her performance here is just how differently she reads off the same stuff at the start of every performance. So like the first one, it was very professional, very clinical. This one, it is straight up flirty, my dude.
But no, here you're right. But here's what's interesting, though. So we have like how you feeling, Peachy and everything. So she undercuts. Here's the thing. He's actually being flirty in the second one. Then she's full on flirty in the third one.
Okay, that's interesting because I actually think she's being a little bit like more. I feel like how I read it is.
Well, she has a very flirty moment. You're right. She does have like a seductive kind of like flirty moment.
Like I feel like in this session she is very much like to the point where she is very comfortable with him.
Yeah.
And she's also kind of maybe like exploring those potential Bundy fangirl feelings. And then I get the sense that in session 4, they got super deep. Like they got super personal. Mm-hmm. And I get the sense that because they got so deep and personal in session 4, that's why if you notice when she starts session 5, she is a lot more flustered. She is a lot more reserved, and she almost doesn't even want to officially start the session. We'll break it all down, but that's kind of like that. That's kind of my read of it.
Yeah, well, I guess my read on session 3 is based on how it opens. Is he starts to get a little flirty with her, and she puts down the lipstick. Okay, I'm listening. And basically, she has the bargain there. Like, I get my diploma, and you get this every session. So this is kind of the classic thing with Harley Quinn, where again she's ultimately taking on the Joker very foolishly, so she can advance her career and everything. So this is her, in some sense, at least at the opening of the session. I think she's trying to manipulate him foolhardily. And that thing about it, she has that. However, while she's doing that, though, you'll see she's like, "You've been stripped of your makeup."
But I think that this power move with the makeup, like, I think that very quickly, again, Dragon, I think that you and I agree that session 4 was kind of the fucking key here, and I think it's a stroke of genius that we don't see it.
Yeah,
like it's just left up to our imagination.
That's the thing. So like she's trying to pull power moves and everything in this session, but again, obviously something huge shifted in 4 that we didn't see. It's like if you wanted to go steady, you should have just asked. This is joking. My life's an open book. So this is where I love.
Just to address Richard's victims, he says he's asking me specifically to comment on this. He says, okay, that's my issue. Psychologically wear her down. I can see Dark Knight and Joker blogs, Joker doing that. I cannot see this Joker wearing down a professional psychologist. So here's the thing, Richard's victims. I can't just call you Richard because you're just Richards. I'm sorry. I agree with you as far as like the performance is not as charismatic or as scary as the other two, for sure. But again, what I kind of feel like this does get right is that passage of time quality. And like I said, the fact that there are therapy sessions here that we are not privy to. So that to me kind of fills in the gaps of like, even though the performance might not be 100% on point yet, I think it makes up for it in the writing and also just by how she's reacting to it. Again, this actress is carrying a lot of the heavy lifting, I think, for the two of them.
Yeah, I do think the performance, as it goes on, it does come more alive for him. Because, again, it gets more intense by the third act.
Well, and also we're just, like, obviously it's like we're building up the actual makeup and look, too.
Yeah, so it's like it's like we're falling down further in the rabbit hole as well. I mean, I think that's also kind of what's helping there. Like, for example, like, my life's an open book, but I love how he restricts the parameters of one of my favorite, I'm not even joking, like, it's going to sounds silly, but I've always loved the way there's like 2 iconic uses I always think of when I think of column A, column B. Okay. Okay. So there's the big one that honestly, I think of secondly is from Aladdin, the whole, try some
Yes.
column A, try a column B. However,
we gushed about the food animation, the towers of crackers.
yep, and the baklava and everything. And anyway, so there's that, but I really do love. I've always loved the way Notarile
A little bit
has
of column A, a little bit of column B. Let's
next
move on.
like little column A, little column B. Next, so I love that. It's just the idea that the Joker, when asked about his origin, his background, and everything, he's just like, were the scars self-inflicted or like the result of an attack? Yes.
Richard's victims agreeing with you, saying that the rules are a very Joker thing.
Yeah, a little again. It feels tantamount to Killing Joke in a sense, which I think was a really, I'm not saying it's verbatim, but kind of like the Dark Knight borrowing from Killing Joke. It feels like we've kind of taken a page from that literal book, where it's like, column B, next question is, okay, look, don't give me a bone, then beat me over the head with it. All right.
So that right there, that's like the moment in this second session that we see where he is just genuinely offended. And I think each time he gets more offended and more upset. But I think this is probably one of the best elements of Notarilli's performance is the fact that he can get into that intimidating mode, that almost like, look at me mode, yeah. But just for a second, right? Just for a couple moments. And then he can like revert back into like the more slick talking Joker. And I really like that, both from a performance and a writing standpoint, just because it's like the Joker knows how in control he is of how threatening he can come across, but also how charming he can be. And he knows how to weaponize it. And he knows exactly, where to utilize those different sides of himself. Does that make sense?
No, it does, yeah. So you have like the whole because again, he is the psychological manipulation going on there as well, where he's like saying, I'm disappointed in you, knowing that's really going to unnerve her. And we see in the moment one of my other favorite moments from this fan film was, she slips into the accent where she says like, you said you were disappointed in me, and
she
you see her
goes into like it's not even animated Harley Quinn. It's more like fucking like like Little Shop of Horrors Audrey with the lisp.
Sure, but still, I just love the moment where he notices that. Like, you can see him like, okay, I know exactly. One could say,
I do think that like in character, it's like you just get the sense that it's almost kind of like a Margot Robbie thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that not just because Margot Robbie played Harley Quinn, but just that's kind of like, that sort of like abrasive like accent, is like kind of like her usual speaking voice. And so it's like when she's doing, so roles like Harley Quinn are actually, and like Tanya Harding are really natural to her. But then like a Barbie or something, it's a little bit more of a challenge, because she is kind of like rough around the edges in real life. So I get that it's kind of like that same thing here where this Harleen probably grew up in like I'm guessing it's like a Jersey accent or something.
Yeah,
so
essentially she's from Bensonhurst, which I think is in New Jersey.
Okay, so I'm imagining she probably came from like a large family and very, very in the culture, but now that she's out on her own and trying to make a name for herself, she's kind of trying to drop the accent, but then the accent keeps slipping. That's kind of how I read it.
Well, that's the thing. The idea, any way you slice, even though obviously we don't know what the heck the precise different the Nolanized version of this is in terms of Harleen's upbringing versus what it kind of is. And even when we do, it's a little amorphous. Like the Harley Quinn animated show took a stab at it, which is probably the most extended stab we've ever had at Harley's parents and stuff. Dini kind of hinted at it, which the Harley Quinn show extrapolated. My point is, any way you slice it, Harleen is trying to get a degree, and she's trying to cut a book deal. She's trying to be a very successful, psychologist. So in doing so, she is trying to present herself very, strongly and professionally and everything. So the moment Joker sees that crack and just that crack in the professionalism, that's presumably what he kind of takes a sledgehammer to and for, just to kind of get. He charms at everyone. Know what the heck he does. But he's like, okay, he's unlocked. He's found he's found the lockpick. Anyway, so he says who and how are off limits, which are the rules. Which I love that. Who and how are off limits. Anything else you can ask me. So let's see. So yeah, the whole end with the whole. He said you were disappointed. I mean, he says like, yeah, you were starting to think, which so many people in the city don't do. Versus Psych 101, which he hates, and then that brings him to talk about the other person in the love triangle, the Batman. Like I told the Batman, I'm ahead of the curve.
Can I say one thing about that? I kind of felt like the whole like I told the Batman, like I felt that was maybe a little bit forced in there, like to name drop Batman.
Now, admittedly, we're used to a thing where we would use Batman extremely sparingly, and when we did, when he came in, it was big.
Sure.
So we're a little spoiled in that regard in terms of like, well, we're kind of a little more starved for the Batman here. Now we're just kind of.
Like I said, I kind of feel like Heath Ledger's Joker wouldn't have just been like, yeah, I had a conversation with the Batman, and I also relayed this to him. I kind of feel like he just like dropped the quote. You know what I mean? Having the context of him also saying it to Batman.
I mean, what's also interesting here is I'll tell you this in about I want to. It might be actually 3, but let's just say definitely 2 of these installments. The Batman will be coined at least once. Okay, so so it is still used sparingly. It's only you're right though. It is very much like a heavy name drop in this one versus like it's actually like something a little more naturally fit in, which I might chalk up to this. It's like, yeah, we want to just emphasize this isn't. So Notarile from the beginning here, he is very much saying he's not doing a full-on impression of Ledger's Joker, kind of like our other guy. He's essentially doing his takeoff of it. So it's starting from Heath Ledger, and he's ultimately kind of doing his own thing because he knows, he's no Heath Ledger. Which, well, it sounds like very much. I think that's kind of what we're saying in a bunch. He's no Heath Ledger. But still, it's an honest attempt at it, and again, it's very much a blend, ultimately, of his own thing. But I would argue, though, that was kind of like covering his bases for I'm a little green to acting versus like as it went on, it was very much kind of like, okay, this is somewhat an actor's take of Heath Ledger versus like a full-on Heath Ledger, like what Heath Ledger, an extrapolation of Heath Ledger, like we had in the other series.
Sure.
So
no, that's kind of what I'm hoping for as we go forward. Is I'm kind of hoping that the Heath Ledger isms kind of fall by the sidelines because I kind of get the sense that Notarile would be better served to just make the character his own thing.
Yeah, which I mean, I don't want to give too much away, but let's just say by the third one, I think you'll see what he's been going for. At least I think ultimately what the thing really flourishes into, which I think we'll get there. So anyway, so let's see. Okay, so basically ahead of the curve, and here's actually I thought this is some really good writing here. I'm ahead of the curve. I've been we're both you and I are reading the same book. The difference is I'm a chapter ahead, but I'll catch up.
Right.
And again, this. No, I'm sorry.
No, I was just saying that is a good line. Yeah.
And again, this is the moment where it very much seemed like a whole ahead of the curve thing. It very much signified to me, okay, we're absolutely doing it's the interrogation scene, only we're changing the other person across the table, which is I thought that was a really good idea if we're going to apply, kind of a mad love story versus the therapy session and everything. If we're going to do it in that way, this is how you do it. So that brings us to session 5.
All right. So yeah, as I already kind of said, you very much get the sense that something happened in session 4 that has changed the vibe.
Yeah. So now he's got more makeup on. Like, here's the thing: I can't. And this is what I was getting at the whole technical and intentional limitations of the way Notarile made his early fan films, especially this. Is that you'll notice there's kind of a desaturated kind of color thing with this stuff. Now, I think in some cases, again, that he usually does that for gritty effect. So it's kind of an intentional thing, but also is only so much. I think this might be a budgetary thing with the camera. It might be because some things are colorful.
I can see that.
I know there are colorful Blinky500 fan films, but a lot of those I think came later. So that's why
keep it. This was 14 years ago. I keep reiterating that.
So that's why I can't say for certain if I don't know if it was.
I mean, that is like Stone Age when it comes to YouTube, dude.
Because when I asked Notarile, he said it was kind of both. So that's ultimately what I take it to be. Where again, it does feel fitting that we're doing this here, and because of that, it's like I can't tell if I don't think he has white makeup on. I think it's just it's incrementally. He's got the lipstick and he's got like eyeliner, which she is also wearing. So it presumes she brought the eyeliner, make him because we're kind of in this somewhat desaturated monochromatic sort of thing. It looks like the full Joker effect because of that. It looks like he has white makeup on. He might actually have it on, but I can't really tell. But either way. it looks fitting. But it's showing that again, he's becoming more and more in control here, and she's been the key to getting him to that place.
Yep.
So the makeup signifies a lot of great things in the power dynamic here. So then we get the nickname here. So it's interesting that in the 3-act structure, he gets his nickname at the start. Now she gets her nickname by the end.
Indeed.
Harley. Call you Harley. Like the motorcycle. Like no. Like like the Harley Quinn, painted nicely on the outside, beautifully complex on the inside. Even had a Harley Quinn doll growing up. Just fits.
I would like to think that somehow he did research into her childhood and got that information. That's kind of my headcanon.
I mean, we have no idea what happened in session 4.
That's what I'm saying.
We don't know.
Yeah.
That might have been like foreshadowed in session 2. We don't know. The tapes are lost. We don't know. Anyway, so week 5, they're getting kind of coupley here. He says, "Oh, I should have brought flowers." So he says he couldn't sleep. This is where Joker's putting the moves on here. He's basically kind of facilitating.
I feel like this is him almost kind of like testing the boundaries. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Almost like playing with her. Like, hey, what are you gonna do to this?
Yeah. It's the whole like not well. So how'd you sleep? Like, aren't you going to ask how I slept? And you're right. She's hesitating, asking the same questions because she knows she's going to have to clip his wings in a few.
Right.
Like I haven't slept well because I'm looking forward to something. And says, oh, and now the way she says "really" is delightful to me, by the way, because it feels very hard.
Well, again, it's very much like Audrey from Little Shop of Horrors. Like, really, Seymour?
Things like saying, it's a sausage fest in here, and how ironic that my punishment is that I get you. I've done so many horrific things, and I get a beauty across from me. How
I do. Now that is a Joker observation. I do like that Joker observation.
So now here's the interesting thing. I think the gag ultimately is that Joker did almost too good a job in kind of being the snake and kind of charming the snake charmer here, where she suggests for his own good, like she's getting back to professionalism here for his own good. I shouldn't be your doctor anymore.
This does not. This is a thing in the 3rd session that does not please him at all.
You're going to want to plant a flag here. She mentions, I'm going to give you over to Dr. David Thurman.
Okay.
Anyways, just a little flag the plant there. Anyway, so are you breaking up with me? Which you don't want to do with the Joker. It's never going to go well. So, what? You're too scared to ride this Harley? Huh? It's just
that's got to be a fucking reference to the infamous line.
A little bit. Little bit. All right, so basically he's getting in her face now. He's getting really aggressive, saying, "Admit that you need me. Say it." And he's saying, "Say it, Harley." He says, "Stop calling me that." And he's getting up.
And that performance where it's like I love the performance here because it's like you can tell that it's such a classic like abuse victim sort of mannerism where it's like she is terrified, but at the same time, she is very much like views this guy as almost her security blanket. It's a sick dynamic.
And then we have the big moment of truth, which I still speculate this was Joker's the big test he had in the back burner the whole time. I'm going to intimidate her into pushing that panic button. She does, and the guard's like on the other end saying, "Dr. Quinzel, you okay?" And there's that pause, and he's looking at her. "Yes, we're fine. My knee hit the panic button by mistake." Okay. So then the moment, I guess I'm saying with like the physical acting here, Joker's kind of he now clicks the button to turn off the session. Just with almost like a little bit of kind of Nostradamus, Joaquin Phoenix kind of energy here, just like click. All right, so then we have a whole thing. I was planning a nice Halloween vacation for us because the thing is set during October, so I'm planning a little Halloween vacation for us. I got just the costume picked out for you.
Gee, I can't imagine what that costume's gonna look like.
And she says, "Anything you say, Mr. J," which ultimately, again, was not
that line is pretty much like she does go full Arlene Sorkin in that line.
Oh yeah. Of course, rest in peace, Arlene Sorkin.
Of course, yeah.
For whom without we don't have any of this. So, fun fact, I'm going to tee this up for you. Again, they did not know they were coming back for more, but in finding out they were going to do more, the name of the next one is Anything You Say, Mr. J.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely optimistic. I think the fact that all of these are like kind of like more standalone, but at the same time they're kind of building on each other. That's definitely exciting, and it's for sure a different dynamic and a different approach than the Joker blogs. So hopefully it's a more meaningful resolution. That's all I really care about. Just give me an ending.
Yeah. Oh, don't worry, dude. You're gonna have ending and an ending to spare. You're
All
gonna be
right.
good. All right, we're gonna be fine. All right, so I guess just to round things out, I want to thank Richard's victims for showing up.
Indeed, and also I believe his name was something like Dadpool on YouTube. Very brief cameo. Just remind you, it could be Tom Profilopoulos for all we know.
I mean, I'm not. It's gonna sound silly, but a part of me, when I first saw him pop up, I was wondering, like, could it be?
It could be.
I saw Tom in the comments of the Blinky500 during some of the live streams. I know he has an avatar similar to that, but I don't know if it's actually him or not. I don't know.
All right, fair enough.
I don't think it seems like an odd title for him, but who knows?
So yeah, big thanks to Richard's victims, especially for showing up. I wasn't sure if anyone would be interested in this, so I appreciate the lively discussion. And we're probably going to break these up with Bat Caves, right, Dragons? Who will do a Bat Cave one week and then one of these the next week. So these won't be every week; they'll be every other week. But still, I'm looking forward to seeing where we go with it. All right, well, have a good night, everyone. See y'all later.
Anything you say, Mr. J?